Christ, being come and high priest of the good things to come, by a greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with hand, that is, not of this creation, neither by the blood of goats or of calves, but by his own blood, entered once into the holies, having obtained eternal redemption. For if the blood of goats and of oxen and the ashes of an heifer, being sprinkled, sanctifies such as are defiled to the cleansing of the flesh, how much more shall the blood of Christ, who by the Holy Ghost offered himself unspotted unto God, cleanse our conscience from dead works to serve the living God? And therefore he is the mediator of the New Testament, that by means of his death, for the redemption of those transgressions which were under the former testament, they that are called may receive the promise of eternal inheritance.
Welcome to Analog Catholic. I'm Ben,
I'm Rob.
and this week we're talking about caffeine and nicotine, drugs.
Yeah, more technically, the culture surrounding caffeine and nicotine. Um,
Yep.
it's very interesting because it's one of those things that it's a secular culture or a popular secular culture, particularly caffeine, is massive in society. Um, and nicotine had disappeared and is now making a comeback in smokeless form. But in Catholic circles, and Ben's witnessed this, I've witnessed this, I know a lot of viewers have witnessed this. In Catholic social groups, particularly male social groups, smoking is just the thing you do. So the nicotine is not just smokeless nicotine like pouches or lozenges, but like actually smoking cigars and cigarettes and pipes and all that good stuff. So there's been a cultural shift. Well, there's been a cultural shift in the greater culture towards nicotine use again, but the Catholic culture has sort of remained in this. Actually, tobacco is good for you. Well, maybe don't say tobacco is good for you, but we're going to keep smoking because it's an aesthetic, you know. It's what's what I'm looking for here. It's it's a vibe. I don't know. I personally am like a little not taken aback, but a little surprised, right? Because in Catholicism we have this desire to not use or abuse substances. So obviously, like flat out, like no drug use. Um, alcohol is to be moderated. Uh, so you would think tobacco, which has such a nasty reputation culturally, would have followed like Catholicism would have followed suit in that idea of it. Um, but it didn't. I mean, yeah, there's still a lot of people that don't like it. Still a lot of people that don't do it, but it's undeniable if you've ever hung out with young adult men that someone's going to be smoking something and that he's going to offer it to someone, and then all of a sudden there's going to be a group of guys smoking something. Um, yeah, so that's part of it. Ben, what about you? What's your perspective on? So what's your perspective on that, I guess, of observing this tobacco culture? Because I think that's two distinctions you should make. There's nicotine culture in the world right now, but there's tobacco culture specifically in Catholicism.
Yeah. I think that, yeah, I think they're two very different cultures.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, I think Catholicism, like, yeah, not that like acceptance of, nicotine as a good thing or like as smoking as a good thing is necessary to be a modern Catholic. But
Hmm.
in some ways, like, just so many of like the great thinkers that like we uphold as young Catholics like did smoke to like thinking right now like Chesterton obviously, and
Yeah,
then
big one.
like Giorgio Frassati who's being canonized this year, right? Like
Yep.
these are like two like names that are on my lips constantly. And like they're both like smokers. And it is interesting too because I was thinking about this a couple of weeks ago actually, how like yeah, like 100 years ago, everybody smoked, right? Like it's not like those, these guys were unique um in their enjoyment of smoking. And so like it's almost like the culture like shifted away from it. And then we've got like this like weird secular like acceptance of nicotine as the drug, but like the smoke causes lung cancer, so don't do the smoke. Um, but Catholicism being just constant, at least in, the center of it. Um, just yeah, it remains what it was. Um, and I think like reports are exaggerated of how bad smoking can be, I think. And I think people overreact to it. And
Yeah.
I think they like a lot of these, or I think a good amount of these studies, this is completely unscientific what I'm going to say, but I think a good amount of these studies, like they are self-reported.
Yeah.
And so people are like, I only smoke once a week. But, the people that say they smoke once a week and then have terrible lungs, maybe smoke more than that. Um, I
Ben
don't
calling
know.
everyone liars.
I don't know. I think some people lie about this. I think this is the same thing with like drinking, right? Like there's
Yeah.
like a lot of these studies are self-reported, and it's like, yeah, I have one drink a day. It's like the person that says they have one drink a day is probably drinking more than once a day. I think that's person like one drink a day is a lot. Um, I don't know. So I think Catholicism is at least like more open to just being like, yeah, the science might be exaggerated on this.
Yeah.
Um, and like it's not like everybody was just like dropping dead at 50, 100 years ago. People were living longer.
Yeah.
Um, and I also like I think a piece of it is, Catholics have their eyes towards, a greater life than the human life or the
Yeah.
earthly life rather. So there's an acceptance of that too.
Yeah. One of the things you mentioned was not not it being not as bad what's as like some people might apply. And I think there's definitely nuance to that. I want to agree with you. But this is like I'm trying to find the study, which now I'm like maybe I just totally hallucinated. The study doesn't exist. I'm pretty sure there was a study that showed that if you smoke, well, here's okay. So here's like a anecdotal. Here's another anecdotal thing, and I didn't lie to my doctor about this. Uh, I when I like moved, I found a
Part of
new
the
physician.
problem.
I, I when I moved, I found a new physician. As one does usually. And so when I was doing like my yearly physical, they do the whole thing like, how much do you drink? How much do you smoke? And I was like, oh, I smoke like at most a cigar a month, like at most. And that's honestly pushing it about how much I ever touch tobacco. And they were just like, oh, okay, we're not even going to put that in the system. It's irrelevant. So like my doctor was like, that's so infrequent. We don't even need to record that. So there's some point there. Anyway, I say that because there was a study I was looking at. Again, I can't find it for life of me. So this, oops. But you're just going to believe me that I saw a study that was suggestive that super infrequent use doesn't really have a correlation with cancer. Um, because the cancer, it's like more of like the consistent, constant heavy use is um uh like the constant irritation, the constant inflammation in the body, like that's what actually causes the cancer. Um, it's not necessarily just, anytime you smoke, it's Russian roulette if you get cancer this time or not. Um, I think that also depends on how you're smoking. So cigarettes, yes, there are going to be worse because you inhale it, you get it in your system, and usually people, yeah, they don't just do like one and they're good for like a month. Usually they're smoking more frequently than they realize. Um, Cigars, kind of a similar thing. You don't inhale with a cigar. Um, but there are people that, we know, there's people that we've heard of that it's like, oh, I smoke a cigar like every morning. Like my breakfast is coffee and a cigar. And it's like, all right, if you're doing it daily like that, that's probably not the best. You know. And then the last form really that's used a lot is pipes, which that's pipe culture specifically in Catholicism, I find really funny. Not because I have anything against pipes, but it has that sense of, oh, this is the Uh, this is the erudite way of smoking. This is the fancy, classy. I don't say like upper class, but like there's like, oh, I'm a pipe smoker. Like I have class. There's quality to my decisions here. Like I'm a discerning man, and I feel like I hate the word vibe, but I'm even thinking better right now. That vibe of, oh, you're a pipe smoker, like that's really attractive to guys because there's a lot of implications with that. Like again, the stereotype of a pipe smoker is not yellow teeth, smelly hair, all that good stuff. It's I'm sitting in my library with my smoking jacket on, discussing the finer things of philosophy, and debating, uh, these theological points with my buddies. Um, and I see that as one of the motivations behind pipe smoking. I don't want anyone to think like, oh, he's calling me a fraud for smoking a pipe or like a fake. I just think that is one of the attractions of pipe smoking specifically, is it gives a certain aura off about like who you are and what you do.
Yeah, no, I agree. Um, yeah, pipe smoking is way more attractive to me than anything else. Um,
That's because Ben's just trying to present himself as someone he's not.
yeah, it's
No, I'm
really
just
the
kidding.
problem.
I'm
No, it
kidding.
is. I admit, um, in the presence of friends, I one time tried smoking a pipe and I hated I hated it. I hated it so much, but
Yeah.
I looked cool. I
You
probably
look
didn't
cool.
because I was just not enjoying.
It was when was that? Oh, that was at one of our buddies' bachelor weekends. That's right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
There might be photo evidence somewhere of Ben smoking a pipe.
I don't think
Uh,
so.
there's, one of the things too is we're completely ignoring caffeine, which is okay. Um, we'll get there in a second. I've noticed, so back up when we were near each other and we had an overlapping friend group, there was a few people that liked to smoke cigars, and it was a very social thing. Um, it was just, hey, come hang out in the garage. This is where it happened. Hang out in the garage, door open, the garage door open. And we'll sit around and we'll just smoke cigars and we'll just chat for like 2 hours. And it was great. I honestly, socialization aspect of it, phenomenal. It facilitates such good conversations. And the person that really like promoted it and like suggested it doesn't use alcohol. And so one of their motivations was, rather than drink and facilitate conversation through drink, let's facilitate it through smoking a cigar. And that has carried over in my experience now that I moved somewhere else. Similar thing. I've met other young adult men, Catholic men, and not everyone, but some people are just like unprompted, they just go, "Hey, we should smoke cigars sometimes," or like, "Hey, we should get together and smoke a cigar," or like, "Hey, we'll have you over, like we'll have your wife and you over for dinner, and then afterwards you and I can smoke cigars and talk." And it's just like that's just it. That's just the way it works now. Um, it's
Yeah,
just yeah, it's a very common experience. Uh, but it's just like you don't really see that so plainly presented, I think, in a non-Catholic context. My non-Catholic friends, like, well, yeah, yeah, they'll smoke a cigar, but like super rarely, and even they still kind of approach it like, oh, like hesitantly, like, oh, do you do this? Like, would you be open to this? Whereas like Catholics, like I said, they just walk up to me, never have met me before, and they're just like, hey, let's smoke a cigar. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, you're a male Catholic, yes, you're gonna smoke. Um, so
yeah.
it's clearly a dominant cultural uh thing with men in the Catholic faith. But
Do you
I've
know?
seen. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I'm
I
sorry.
I was I was just gonna say for the men it is. I've heard a lot of women not be fans of that culture.
Yeah.
FYI, just pointing that out
Well,
there.
what it's making me think of, it's like random, but I know you've been watching Downton Abbey. And in
Yes.
Downton Abbey, like this is like 1920s, like British, like high culture.
Yeah.
Um, that like when they have their dinner parties, they
Yes.
all have dinner, and then like the guys go off to have whiskey or something, and then
Yeah.
like the girls go into the other room. And like
Yeah.
we just don't have that. Like we don't have
I
like
know.
this the smoking culture thing.
Yep.
Like the example you gave of like you and your wife come over for dinner and then like the guys will go smoke, where like this is like an excuse to like get the guys in a room alone
Yeah.
for like the guy time.
Yeah.
Which I think is good. Like I think it's a good
No, yeah, it's necessary.
excuse. But I think it's like the same thing with coffee. Like
Hmm.
I think this is more of a feminine thing. I think guys could do it. I'm sure they do. But like my wife, like when she hangs out with like her friends, it's
Yep.
like, oh, let's go get coffee sometime. Like that's,
Yeah.
like that's
Yeah.
more the feminine version of it. Um, yeah.
A lot of
And
guys are
it
gonna be
is,
upset by that.
well, I drink coffee.
I
I just
no,
don't
I
have
know.
friends. Um, but
That's why we do a podcast so we can still be
exactly.
friends. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have to monetize it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, we make so much money off our friendship.
yeah, buy our coffee mugs. Catholic.com.
Man, maybe we should start selling ashtrays or something too.
We should. I actually wrote a blog post about this like over a year ago on my blog, a pilgrim's platinum.bendabella.com. Um, but when I started drinking alcohol, it was like I think there was like an aesthetic desire. Um, but like my habit of drinking it, which was
Uh-huh.
not like often, not crazy often,
Yeah.
but like my habit of drinking it like aroused it like happened because it became like a social thing. Like I had a good friend that I was living with, and we would just like sit down and drink whiskey like once a week or something. Um,
Yeah. That wasn't
and
me,
like
by the way.
it wasn't you, and that was like the pretense for like yeah, like us being able to like sit down and have conversation,
Hmm.
and that was great. And now
Yeah.
like that this friend no longer lives with me, I guess because I'm married, but also he doesn't live around here anymore. Like I just don't
Yeah.
drink like I used to. So it's like a similar thing. Like the reason that I got into like drinking alcohol
Yeah.
was for the social aspect. I think what's different, but though I think didn't they just like in the US upgrade the alcohol safety warning to be the same as as smoking?
Oh, I have no idea. I barely touch alcohol. I don't have a personal issue with it. I just don't care about it.
Yeah.
I don't think it necessarily tastes good. I mean, there's definitely good taste. I've like, had good whiskey and stuff like that. I'm not saying it's like all gross. I just will almost never touch it. Yeah, I'll just almost never touch it. So I have no idea what they're doing with alcohol because it's just not something that I really ever pay attention to.
Well, I
Um,
know this was like a month ago. I was I guess in January. I was hanging out with my cousin and he was like, "Do you hear they just changed the safety warning on alcohol to match up?" Yeah, here it is. The US government that has a government warning statement regarding the risk of alcohol consumption, similar to yeah, they just like upgraded it. But he's like, they just changed the safety warning on alcohol, so to be the same as smoking. So you know what that means? And I was like, what? And he's like, I got to start smoking. I was like, that's funny.
I,
But it's like I think we just have a culture that, even though like now, like the authorities that be say alcohol is just as bad as smoking, we have a culture
yeah,
that has said for so long that smoking is just this terrible thing
yeah.
compared to alcohol that like we don't believe that. But maybe in like 100 years, alcohol will become the same kind of taboo thing that smoking is now.
Yeah, and I think this kind of goes back to what you were saying earlier about people underreporting how much they actually consume, like alcohol wise, and really just I think any substance people will usually undersell themselves. Um, there's like an actual alcohol problem in the country. When you really like parse through the data, it's there are like people who drink a lot, and I mean a lot every week. And when they think back and they tell you, they're like, "Oh yeah, I had a few here and there." And it's like, okay, objectively sit through and tell us exactly what you drink. And it's like they drink the equivalent of like 8 beers a day for a week. Um, like there's like actual alcoholism that's a huge issue in the US. It's not really addressed. It's not really handled properly, right? And it's not treated the same as tobacco. Like smoke, if you just say you smoke like a cigar, like once a month, once every other month, maybe just like once a week, people will look at you like you're just like degenerate person who's just like killing themselves. But if you say like, "Oh yeah, I drink," and everyone just kind of goes, "Okay, cool," and like moves on with their life. But I mean, alcohol quite literally is poison. So you are consuming poison. And I get it. There's a whole thing there. I'm not here to start moralizing against the use of alcohol. I mean, excessively, sure, but people drink moderately, fine. People drink socially, fine. Um, I don't like when I was in Rome with my wife for our honeymoon, glass of red. I don't think I only had like two glasses of red wine the whole time we were there, but it's just like part of the thing and it was good, tasted great. But I don't have a desire to come home, pop open a bottle of like crack open a can of beer and just like sit and drink. Like I don't it doesn't serve a purpose to me. And in that same way, I have that same approach to coffee. Because there are some people who um there are some people who drink coffee and they'll drink decaf. And I think, why in the world would you ever touch coffee without caffeine? I don't like the taste of coffee. I drink my coffee black. I don't like the taste of coffee. It's not bad. I've definitely acquired the taste, and some quality brands are obviously tastier than others. But I would never touch coffee without caffeine because I don't see coffee as anything other than a vehicle for caffeine. Um, so I don't like. This is also like why I will sometimes go the other direction and like touch or not touch, drink energy drinks because what do I want from it? Oh, I want the caffeine from it. You know, um, though energy drinks I've really cut down on because while I think the doomsaying people that are like, oh, like energy drinks are like again, like smoking is Russian roulette for cancer, like energy drinks are Russian roulette for like a heart attack. Like one day you're just gonna have one and you're gonna die. It's like if you really parse through all of those, oh, so and so drank energy drinks and then died. It's not because, well, they might have a pre-existing heart condition, which that's the issue, not caffeine. Um, but the other time it's like uh when I was a kid, I think it was middle school, there was a huge article that came out saying that a young boy died from a heart attack or like he died from health complications and they said it was because he drank Monster Energy. And me, having from a very young age doubted the authenticity and honesty of journalists, and I still maintain that to this day. Uh, besides, like look into the article and not just stay at the headline. And when you read the article, it's like, oh, he drank like four monsters and stayed up all night staring at a screen playing video games. And I'm like, yeah, that's why he died. Not because he's like sipped an energy drink. Um, and there's actually a pretty big headline a month ago, I think, where it was like, oh, 24-year-old like bodybuilder woman like died. And you're thinking, okay, how'd she die? Did she die from working out? Did she die from the energy drinks they implied? And again, you look into the details, and she had had like over a gram of caffeine for the day, which is well above recommended limit through various means, through energy drinks, through pre-workout, through something else. And then she was also like taking some other stuff. So it's like we're seeing all these scare headlines of this or that product is killing people, like this or that is like really bad. And then when you get into the details, it's like, no, they grossly abused the product and they were also doing other super unhealthy things at the same time that they were doing that, you know? So in the same way for energy drinks, where I've gotten jaded on people criticizing them because I'm like, you're criticizing them based on faulty, misleading headlines. Uh, the same kind of comes to tobacco use, and then caffeine use, I guess, is a general thing. But also that's the thing too. There are people who just wake up, make a bunch of coffee, get to like midday, drink a bunch more coffee, get to like early afternoon and drink some more coffee. I'm like, you have just consumed probably 400 milligrams of caffeine via coffee. Now, coffee is objectively healthier than energy drinks. Coffee is actually pretty healthy for you. There's a lot of debate back and forth. Some people will be like, "Oh no, it stresses your adrenal glands, and like you're constantly in a state of stress, and blah 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 blah." But then there's also like the polyphenols in it, and it works really well. There's a lot going on. We don't need to go into those details. Look it up. Um, but anyway, the point of coffee for me is caffeine, and to facilitate conversation. So I'm gonna push. I'm not gonna push back. I'm just gonna let you call me feminine because a lot of my job is meeting people, it's building relationships. And my number one approach to people when I try to meet them for the first time and build a relationship with them, and then probably what I'm going to keep doing to sustain a relationship with them is, hey, let's go grab coffee. Or lunch. Usually it's like lunch or coffee, whatever. one person was like, let's go to this cafe because they or like this deli because like they do good coffee and lunch, so we could decide there what we're gonna do. But yeah, ultimately it's like it's such that also is such a great facilitator of conversations and of breaking the ice. And it's like super low key. Let's go to the coffee shop. Oh, you don't like coffee, but you like tea. Great, they sell tea. Or like you don't like either, but whatever, they sell other drinks there. Great. Um, so caffeine, nicotine, they're good. That's my that's my take. They're good. I love them. I'm just gonna say it. I use knickknacks. We're not endorsed by them. Knickknacks are like a nicotine lozenge. So Zins were really popular. Now they're becoming less popular with like the more conservative aspect of people because they're choosing Alp, which is like Tucker Carlson's brand. Because Zin is like I guess woke. I don't know. I used Zin once or a couple times. And I thought it was okay. But I didn't like the pouches. And so that's why I like Tic Tacs because they're lozenges. So they just dissolve. But yeah, I popped one for this uh Zoom meeting, not Zoom meeting. This podcast recording. This is how we record our podcast. I just pulled back the curtain there.
Just dropping all the brands.
I know. And just maybe one of them will pick us up and give us some money.
Yeah, I'm sure
Uh
Zoom will give us some money.
no, yeah.
Why?
I'm not gonna
Why,
put these in the
Robert?
show notes because I think there might be an issues with us putting tobacco products in show notes, but I might mention them, but I don't think I'll link them. I think that's the key.
Robert, what's the why did you pop a tick Zintac? What is it called?
A knickknack,
Yeah, why? Why'd you do it?
because I'm helplessly addicted. No, I'm kidding. I don't have any cravings like that. No, I pop it because it helps me focus. It like in a very clean feeling way helps me focus. I've never taken things like Adderall or Ritalin or anything like that. I've had friends that have been on it and they kind of tell me like, "Oh, this is how I feel when I take it," and I'm like, "That's cool. I never want to touch that." But nicotine gives like a very similar feeling, and I take the 3 milligram, which is the smallest amount because I don't, yeah, I'm not ready for the big boy stuff. Uh, yeah, I take it because it just helps. It helps me focus. It helps me keep me on track. I One of the things I struggle with is is focus on like focusing on the thing in front of me. So again, so like an example for my job, I just had to write up a proposal, massive proposal. It was like 13 pages, 5,000 words. Had to propose, write it up, send it to my boss. I wrote it all in a day. It took me like a few hours. I wrote it all in a day. And I, throughout that process, popped 3 knickknacks and drank 2 decent sized coffees. Like, yeah, 20, 24 ounces worth of coffee. And I felt phenomenal while I was doing that. Black coffee, mind you. I felt phenomenal while I was doing that. My mind was clear. I was super focused. I wasn't distracted. Uh, and I got through it, and I see those benefits in my own personal use. I see people explain like, oh, these are the benefits I experience, which is the same benefits. And I'm like, yeah, this is like good. And there's nothing I've seen that suggests nicotine's bad. There's a ton that says smoking tobacco is bad. And I think a lot of that, there's gonna be some people who are rip into this, I'm sure, because they're gonna think I'm just like, oh, there's nothing unhealthy about smoking tobacco. That's not true. Cigarettes especially are loaded with a ton of chemicals. Like you're actually smoking a ton of chemicals in addition to your tobacco. It's not good. I actually don't recommend cigarette smoking at all. Um, Cigars, it's a little bit easier because again, you're not inhaling it. But nicotine in its pure form, which is like what these pouches and lozenges are supposed to be, it just helps me focus. It gives me like the benefits of nicotine, which is a lot of benefits of nicotine. Um, there's I don't want to go down like there's like so many rabbit holes I can go down. I'm trying not to like go down every one. There's
Yeah, I have a
some,
couple of
yeah,
thoughts.
yeah, because there's
Uh,
some arguments that nicotine's also like anti-parasitical. Um, and here's the big one I'm going to drop. It's going to get us in trouble. There was some arguments that nicotine use was helpful in preventing either contraction of or serious contract or serious degree of COVID, which I have no idea about the authenticity of that. I just saw that around a lot, and I was like, that sounds nice, but I don't think there's any way to really kind of prove that. But the anti-parasitical thing, I think, has been proven. So that's interesting also. But yeah, go ahead with your thoughts.
Yeah. We're gonna get so many safety warnings in this episode now. If
Just to get,
it goes anywhere. Um, I think one more thought on the science, because I'm
yeah.
totally unqualified to make a comment, um, is like I do think like your example of going to the doctor saying I smoke once a month and them
Yeah.
saying I'm not even going to write that down, right? Like
Yeah.
that's an example of like you're self-reporting how that you smoke and
Yeah.
they don't write it down. The ones they
Yeah.
do write down are the ones that smoke a ton, right?
Yeah.
And so that like right there, that's skewing the data that these doctors' offices are collecting, right?
Yeah.
Because now it's like the people that you're like, if you smoke at all, if you touch a cigarette or like a cigar or you touch a pipe, like you're gonna die. But it's also
Right.
like you smoked a cigar and nobody wrote it down, right? So like I
Yeah.
think that's like something important. Um, of just like, yeah, there's this different culture. And then the second thing is like I think not gonna like be that guy, but I am. But like we consume so much stuff that I think is probably worse for us than
Yeah.
tobacco, right? Like all these artificial sugars and things.
Yep.
It's terrible for us. But it's like the health industry has not it's terrible. Has not decided that they want to like crack down on all these things. Um yeah, for various reasons. And I think there's like less correlation and these things are newer and whatever, right? But like it's so clear that like so much of what we consume is bad for us. Um, and I think a lot of like modern disciplined Catholic culture is trying to like be more intentional about what they consume. And
Yeah.
part of that is all right, like so much I consume is like bad for me. I'm gonna choose what I want to consume that is bad for me, right? Like
Yeah.
the like modern crunchy Catholic family, right? Like they will like maybe try to get like more natural foods, right? Like grass-fed like meats and stuff, right?
Hmm.
Try to avoid kind of the artificial sugars and things like that, but then allow like things like smoking occasionally or things like alcohol, which are still like bad because like so many things are bad for you, but arguably, they're kind of picking their poison, if you will,
Hmm.
then they're making those judgments. Now, I said family, and then I said they're allowing alcohol. I didn't mean the kids are drinking alcohol. I meant like the idea of like, like the parents probably, but like, in
Yeah.
that context, right? Like there's just, more intentionality with it. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think it's also important. I don't know if we said it, but like the Catholic Church, like claims that, these things are okay in moderation.
Yeah.
There's that famous Chesterton quote about the children and defense. Something like Catholic discipline is walls, but they're walls of a playground or something like that. Just the thought that, like, like we have sort of given these restrictions, right? Like the Catholic Church condemns stuff that is innately mind altering, like drugs and things, and
Yeah.
um, the general judgment is that something like nicotine or caffeine in moderation is not innately mind altering. And so like the church allows it, but then also like it's on us to kind of judge moderation and things like that. And it's on us to like have these conversations. So I think it's it's good to like sit down and reflect on it. Because I think there are times when I drink too much coffee
Hmm.
and like I should be aware of that. And so I think it's like good to be thinking about these things consistently. And like it's also right? Like we don't want to be too dependent upon the things. But with that being said, it's like,
Yeah. No,
like they are goods, and as long as they're done in moderation, it's not a bad thing. And so I think it's important not to like overthink it or to jump to the judgment. I saw an interview once with a Protestant like guy from like a Christian rock band. And
yeah.
he was like, what does being Christian mean? It probably means you should be nice and you probably shouldn't smoke. And I was like, we have a totally different like understand. And I think he was like kind of making a joke about like what people think Christianity means.
Yeah.
Um, but like for him to jump on like you probably shouldn't smoke, I was like, that's not the way I think about Christianity. Like
Right. Yeah.
that's
No,
not
yeah.
even
Yeah.
something I like. I think the being nice part, like but like not smoking, like and I think it's just totally different culture. And so I think, like the church allows this, the playground idea, like we should try to enjoy our lives,
Yes,
but also
yeah.
like be intentional, but try to pursue God in that. And yeah, if nicotine helps you pursue God, like do it.
Yeah, I
You
no,
get my
there's
point.
some good. Yeah, um there's some good stuff there. It's I thought you were gonna do a different Chesterton quote, which was there's room enough in Catholicism for the pipe, the pint, and the cross. Um, which
Yeah, I
sort
was
of
thinking
like,
about that one. I
yeah,
thought that was too straightforward.
yeah, it's too obvious. It's too obvious. Um, I agree with you 100% that if we're going to be sitting here talking about, oh, we need to be health conscious, we need as a society to label things that are dangerous. Here's the truth, folks. You need probably 90% of what sits on your grocery store aisles to have government warning labels about how you're going to get cancer because all of the preservatives, not all of them, a lot of the preservatives, a lot of the seed oils, a lot of this stuff, long-term use, yes, they are correlated with significant health issues. Um, and one of the big things I see online between these clashing cultures is, hey, occasional tobacco use slash, regular like nicotine use, if you're using it differently, is actually not bad for you. But constantly eating, highly processed, ultra processed foods, cooking all of our food in seed oils and stuff like that actually is dangerous for you long term. And we as a society like don't care. We don't think there is a shift in the culture to like care way more about what we eat and put in our bodies. I think that's honestly part of why Trump won is because people liked that part of RFK Jr. And once they became a team, whatever, that made him attractive. But yeah, there's this intentionality. There's a shift in the culture for sure. But we're still not quite there where like yeah, if you say, oh, I'm gonna, I smoke a cigar, people are just like, wow, you're very unhealthy. But if you're like, yeah, I eat highly processed foods every day for a meal, they're just go, okay, you just are like a normal person. And it's like, well, yeah, you're doing the thing that like the average person does, but you shouldn't, right? Like we shouldn't. And there's, again, go off tangents about European quality standards for food versus American. Um, but there's more concerning health issues I think people need to deal with right now than getting up in arms about people that use tobacco or caffeine. I don't. There's really no cultural issue with caffeine. I think there might be a little bit of a bias against energy drinks, but even they have become pretty popular because it used to be like three different brands. Now you have half the gas station coolers are full of energy drinks, different brands and everything. So yeah, have fun. Be smart, consume moderately, and consult your physician. Under all these disclaimers at the end of the
Yeah,
episode.
yeah, definitely do that.
Neither of us are doctors or scientists. Take everything we
What
say with a grain of salt. We're just
what was
commenting.
your what was your associate's degree in?
Biomolecular science. Thanks
Yeah,
for
there
pointing
you
that out.
go.
I'm
There you go.
gonna throw that out there.
We have authority.
Yeah, that's my associate's. My master's in theology. Thank you. I won't mention my bachelor's because I don't care about it. It is irrelevant. There you go.
Wow, a full-rounded person, Robert. You have the greatest authority to talk about like God and nicotine with your associate's degree in
I can.
bio. Well, happy Easter, everybody.
Yeah,
Enjoy and
because that's
feast
when you're
and
gonna hear this. Yeah.
do the things.
Yeah, enjoy. It should be the Easter season when this comes out. Yes, it will be. No, yes, it won't be the octave, but it'll be the Easter season. Sorry, I'm like, we have another episode
We
coming up
said
before
it's
this
I said
one.
it so confidently, and we were just gonna move on.
I
People are gonna be
know
like, "Wow, they're recording this day of."
this is not what we're spending our Easter doing.
Well, thank you for joining us.
uh, this has been Rob.
This has been Ben.
I need more nicotine. I can't focus. This this is bad about Catholic.